So we have come to midwinter. It is now, as we begin to dream of spring, that we look to the groundhog to see his shadow or not, to tell us when the season will turn. On this day, the earth-centered traditions celebrate Imbolc, the feast of Saint Brigid in English, Brige in the Celtic pronunciation, who uses her willow wand to wake up the trees. And that is important because trees move quite slowly, and it's time to prepare for the coming of spring. Midwinter is a time for waking, a time to prepare for change, for the coming of spring. This waking time, as the seasons begin to shift around us, is a good time to rewatch the 1993 movie Groundhog Day, which has been referred to in various ways already today, but not directly. The movie stars Bill Murray and Andie MacDowell. It's one of those movies I can watch again and again. I've watched it twice this week, because its message speaks to universal themes in our human condition. Roger Ebert, the iconic movie critic who died several years ago, wrote a lovely exploration of the movie's meanings, and I quote from his writing. Groundhog Day is about a man who finds himself living the same day over and over and over again. This man is named Phil Connors, and he's a weatherman. Every day on February 2nd, Phil is dispatched to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, to cover the festivities of Groundhog Day, on which Punxsutawney Phil, the groundhog, is awakened from his slumbers to discover if he will see his shadow. As the movie begins, says Roger Ebert, Phil, the weatherman, not the groundhog, is a perfect bastard, an insufferable jerk. He is arrogant, dismissive, and rude to everyone around him, including his co-workers, Rita and Larry. Phil has no liking for himself, his job, his colleagues, or the human race. After completing his broadcast of the Groundhog event, all Phil wants to do is get out of town, but there's a blizzard and he cannot leave the town. But then it turns out he cannot even leave the day. He lives through February 2nd right there in Punxsutawney again and again. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, in his case, doesn't creep at its petty pace from day to day, but gets stuck like a broken record. Phil is free to change what he says and does from one February 2nd to the next, but it will always be the same February 2nd for everyone else in the world, and each morning he will always start from the same place. The people in his world will repeat themselves unless he changes his own actions. They will adapt in response to his changes, but tomorrow they will have forgotten their new lines and be back to the first draft of February 2nd. Phil is the only person in his world who knows this is happening, and he tries all his old tricks. He uses the repeated day to manipulate others, to take advantage of them for his own ends. He goes through a dark period where he tries to kill himself, the reckless period when he crashes his car because he knows it doesn't matter, the times of despair, and then after going through periods of dismay and bitterness, revolt and despair, suicidal self-destruction and cynical recklessness, he begins to do something that is alien to his nature. He begins to learn. Over time, or rather over the non-progression of time, Phil learns to really see himself for the first time, and to see Rita and to learn that he loves her and to strive to deserve her love. He astonishingly wants to become a good man, and only when he's truly made the change in his own heart can he finally move forward. So said Roger Ebert. My point in providing this movie review, well, one point is, even though we may seem to move through time, in all our lives, things will repeat themselves unless we change our hearts, unless we recognize the need to learn new ways of being in the world and develop the skills to support them. In the movie, Phil learned not only to love, he created a new vision for his life and took action to move in that direction. After everything he already knew had failed him, Phil decided he might as well try something new, seeing new possibilities even in familiar territory. He used the available time in his endlessly repeating days to acquire new skills, speaking French, playing the piano, creating ice sculptures, being kind to other people, building on what he had mastered in the past, equipping himself for the life he now imagined, a life which had not even seemed a possibility in the past. And once he had integrated that new learning, finally, time could begin to move forward for him. We move in time and time moves in us. This weekend marks my semi-anniversary here in Cherry Hill, completing the first 6 months of our new developmental ministry together. I've been in a rapid learning process, still asking people what their name is, putting names and faces together, figuring out how things are done here, finding answers for my questions, and more questions for the answers I find. I continue to learn more about your history, going back to your founding in 1956, tracing the ups and downs of congregational life, the decisions that were made, the crises that were weathered, the ways you have grieved the loss of beloved ministers and members, your triumphs in the face of adversity, the visions and dreams you realized in the past, and the new dreams and possibilities that are emerging for your future. This has been a busy time for us all, as there's a lot going on in this church community: new classes, new social justice initiatives, new ways of organizing the tasks of congregational life, and of course the deep and often invisible work of preparing to restore the sanctuary after the roof was literally caving in. No wonder I sometimes feel like we're in a whirl of activity. And always there is more. One of my core beliefs is that our life in this human form is an evolution, an ongoing experiment constantly open to discovery and change. I'm quite sure that if we keep doing what we've always done, we will continue to get the results we've been getting. And if we love those results, fine, we should stay the course. And if we're not satisfied with those results, if we imagine something different for the future, it's up to us to take the best of our past, the heritage of commitment, the skills and abilities that got us to where we are, and to begin to recognize, to explore, to experiment, to evolve, to learn. Developmental ministry is all about dreams and possibilities, about evolution, about that uncomfortable and exhilarating work of new learning. Back in mid-November, about 50 of us gathered in this room to set the priorities for our developmental time, the ministry that is ours to define and create together. In a Saturday of thoughtful work, you identified 3 priorities that you agreed are crucial to living into your mission as a congregation that learns, values, and serves toward your vision of being a beacon of liberal religion in South Jersey. Those 3 priority areas you identified for our work together are to create a culture of trust, of abundance, and of connection. Recreating, redefining, restoring, and revitalizing the culture of this congregation in those 3 areas: trust, abundance, connection, moving always in the direction of more wholeness and health. After the retreat, I put out an open call for folks to let me know how they wanted to be involved in the new teams that would take up this developmental work, and there's a wonderful range of church members and friends who have signed on in each of the areas. These teams remain open if anyone chooses to get involved later, but if you want to be in on the ground floor, now's the time to let me know. Several people have asked me exactly what will this look like. They wanted to kind of check it out before they bought on. And my response has been that this is a journey of discovery for all of us. And it may look different ways at different times as we all learn and evolve together. This is a journey where no church has gone before, charting our own path into possibility as it opens before us. However, it's also true that once you name something you're going to work on, the work begins immediately to germinate beneath the surface, like a bulb, as spring approaches, to open and evolve. We've already started to generate our inquiry into the shape the developmental processes might take, with discussions about trust and connection popping up in various settings. And 7 of us participated in a webinar last weekend that focused on fostering a spirit of abundance in congregational life. As our discussions have recently created space for us to think together, I've been reflecting on some of the patterns I've been observing in society and in this church with interest and a bit of curiosity. There's one rather puzzling cultural pattern that's really been showing up for me lately, both in society and here in church. It's related to both trust and connection, and that is the pattern I've started calling kindness. As I was rewatching the Groundhog Day movie this week, I noticed that Phil the weatherman, not the groundhog, in the opening scenes was very skilled at his job. He was articulate and personable on screen. He was ambitious to advance his career and move ahead in his field, and he was a pleasure to hear and watch when he was doing his weatherman thing for a TV audience. But he was also arrogant and disdainful in person, with frequent put-downs of his local TV station, his co-workers, the town of Punxsutawney, and even of the famous Groundhog. He was centered on his own priorities and needs, and he tended to brush people off impatiently with a noticeable lack of patience and kindness. I found myself cringing a bit as I watched, remembering times in my life that I've been impatient, or I've experienced or witnessed the effects of those behaviors in my own life. Sticks and stones might break my bones, but to really hurt someone, our words and tone of voice are much more destructive, creating damage that can be much more difficult to heal. Phil, in the first part of the story, was not patient or kind, and I realized how being kind and targeting kindness to those around us is a choice we make in every interaction, in every relationship. And then I remembered a conversation at a committee meeting last week in which I found myself talking about some of the incidents of unkindness I've witnessed lately in a variety of places and interactions. In each case, a person I know and love, someone with a generous and giving heart, a person who will go out of their way to help a friend, to give a ride, or make a meal when someone's ill, I see that same loving person casually speak or act in a way that's impatient or unkind, apparently very focused on the task at hand, in that moment seeming to lose track of the human touch, forgetting to place relationship ahead of whatever priority is top of mind for them. I do it myself more frequently than I would like, and I realize how easy it is to slip into a focus on the task and let the relationship become secondary. Someone years ago commented that I can be crisp, especially when I'm feeling time pressure to get things done. I'm a work in progress. I was in a meeting yesterday and people were kind of standing around talking, and I said, "Move!" They took it in good spirits, but I realized I didn't need to do it that way. So I do my best to notice when I go there and to set aside the crisp and bring up the patient side of myself. And I feel the hurtful impact of those impatient interactions, my own and others, especially in a church where people come looking for the warmth and acceptance of community, where we say every week that love is the spirit of this church. So I wonder what would happen if we thought of patience as a practice and kindness as a muscle. Like any muscle, we need to learn where it is in our body and how best to use it. Like a muscle, our reflex to be kind grows stronger the more we use it, and if we do not identify, develop, and use it, it can atrophy. In the spirit of creating a culture of trust and connection, perhaps we might make a commitment together to begin working together on finding our kindness muscles and begin to exercise them in all sorts of places here. Maybe we could schedule a kindness exercise class, sort of like yoga or the gym, to help us all, me included, strengthen our kindness muscle. And then practicing here, we can take our kindness with us into other parts of our lives. So what does a more patient kindness look like on an everyday basis? How might we begin practicing it? Well, it might begin with curiosity. bringing a spirit of inquiry in all our relationships. It might look like taking a moment to check in with people to see what they're thinking, what they need or prefer, rather than taking the more efficient route of imagining they'll know what's in our heads and be comfortable with what we have in mind. It might look like when somebody else makes a mistake, or pronounces a word wrong, or does something that just isn't going to get them results, maybe just letting it go. That's all a big one for me when there's a lot going on. I hope you'll see me practicing patience more in the coming days. It might be as simple as taking a moment after we write that email, going back and adding please at the beginning and thank you at the end. I was telling somebody the other day that I write all my emails, I write the email and then I go put the cursor back at the beginning of the message and open with something kind. It's because I'm thinking of the task and then I step back and I think about the kindness. And the good thing is in email you have time to do that. When you're interacting with somebody, you got to remember in the moment. So we can do that when we're speaking in person as well. We might also stretch into expressing our sincere gratitude even when something is not done exactly as we might have done it. How many of us see something and say, oh, that's not the way I would have done it, but then they criticize it. And instead, well, that's the way they did it. That's harder. And that might be part of the advanced class in patience and kindness, right? We could have kindness 101, kindness 201. And if someone fails to meet our expectation in some way, if someone doesn't show up according to our schedule or move over to get out of our way, rather than moving ahead on our own track, we could pause, check in to find out what's going on with them, and grant them the grace of acceptance we would hope to receive if we were in their situation. We might, with more attention, reach out with kindness to strangers, visitors, and people we don't know well, not ignoring those we already know and love, but opening the circle, also to welcome those who come here, seeking the loving community we have to offer. It took a sharp break with reality as he knew it, and many, many days, or many repeats of the same day, of trial and error, for Phil the weatherman to find his kindness muscle and figure out how to use it. If we want to live into those words we claim as our own each week, love is the spirit of this church. Helping ourselves and each other to find and exercise our kindness muscle might be a very good way to begin. We don't have to be stuck in Punxsutawney, although it's not that far away, but we can do it right here in Cherry Hill. What might this world look like if every one of us in this room and then all the others in our lives began to work with intention and attention on developing kindness as our reflex, pausing to put our own priorities second and consider our relationships, the people around us, first? I think if we really did that, we could start a kindness wave that would transform all those we touch, really providing a beacon for our way of being religious in South Jersey. We would truly be building a new way and taking it into the world. And as we dream, we can make it happen. So may it be. I invite you to rise and embody your spirit and join in singing hymn number 1017 in our teal hymnal, Building a New Way. And maybe we can add a verse. We're learning to be kind. How about that? We can add a verse in. So okay, thank you to Aaron and Bill for being our song leaders. Didn't mean to put you on the spot, Bill, but I know you can do it. So 1017, Building a New Way. And if we get kind in there, just go ahead and ad lib. Put any words you want in.
It's going to be interesting. Say it with me.